Yeah, so I wanted to release a little video about solar activity here. Just watching Dutchsinse's feed about the recent earthquakes. Uh, and it's very interesting that, solar activity is related. Directly related. When the solar activity gets weird, earthquakes kick up. Here comes an active region after weeks and weeks of inactive regions. And just let's put the solar activity aside for a second. The seismic activity here is so obvious. I mean, anybody that is willing to. Let me pause that music. Anybody that's willing to actually follow this, such as Dutchsinse, and I'm not sure anybody else on the entire planet, is able to predict these sort of earthquakes. So we've had a deadly earthquake in Indonesia killing close to 100 people, probably over that by now, who knows. And it was predicted. It was absolutely predicted a week ago on Dutchsinse's feed. Let's see if we can find any solar data associated, right? So we're looking at solarham.com. We're looking at the NASA SDO, the Solar Dynamics Observatory data. Here's your live earthquakes. And we're looking at quakes.globalincidentmap.com. And there you go. There's your 6.9 in 3 kilometers south-southeast of Loloan, Indonesia, at only a 31-kilometer depth, which means it was felt heavily at the surface. Now, let's look at spaceweathernews.com, because there's typically always solar stuff as well as low pressure systems associated with these sort of deadly earthquakes. First of all, let's look at the X-ray flux. The X-ray flux is flatlined. The phi angle is flatlined most of the day. The solar wind density is flatlined most of the day. The solar wind speed is dropping. And the temperature is fairly level over a daily trend. Now, the magnetometer, we're not going to say the magnetosphere because we're measuring the magnetic field in space here, okay? Drop down, and the red and blue lines, they got very far away from each other. I'm sorry, the earlier part was about the proton flux. No, it was all about the X-ray flux. Anyway, so let's continue. The KP index is back down to 0. Okay, solar activity is actually low. So there was no spike in solar activity that caused this series of earthquakes around the entire planet today. Here's what caused it, or here's the data associated with that variable. The GOES electron flux. Okay? Now, you see the way that right in this area today, the electron flux has crossed itself at least 5 times on the low energy and at least 3 times on the high energy. Now, do you think that's a coincidence? That has not happened during the current earthquake drought. Now, just to close up the video, look at the F2 ionosphere layer. Very low energy, okay? It is not the high energy that is the danger. The danger is the energy flux. So if you're at high energy and it goes to low, or low energy and it goes to high, or any combination of those two, that is your risk factor. Let's look once again at the electron flux. Keep this in mind. There you go. Now, we haven't had the electron flux cross itself 5 times in one day for several weeks. Consider that when predicting earthquakes. And thanks. Please subscribe. We're covering this daily.